So I'm going to briefly go over the Panasonic tools and some other tools to install S5. To jump right into it, there was a video done with me doing the whole spiel about it. And so I'm going to let you kind of watch that, and then we'll go over it in more detail with the tools actually underneath.
Hi, I'm Shawn Haddock from S5 here at Intersolar 2014. Today I'd like to introduce to you a new product from S5. This is a torque-controlled shutoff tool from Panasonic. We've partnered together with Panasonic to offer these new line of tools. They're impact and they are torque indicating. So you set a specific torque value on the tool, and from that point forward you can move on to your job knowing that you're achieving specific torque on your screws. As you know, with S5 products, you've got to reach a specific torque on this set screw. It's generally 130 to 160 inch-pounds. With this tool, I've pre-calibrated it with my torque wrench, and so I know that I'm achieving those torque values. From that point forward, it's as simple as holding the trigger until the tool shuts off. I get a green light, I never let go of the trigger. At that point, I know that I can repeat that throughout the entire job, and I don't have to go back to the old clunky torque wrench. These tools also have radio transmitters in them that will communicate with this box over here. So if I hold this tool, this is batch counting for me, and I just got a red light because I did not achieve torque. I let go of the trigger too soon. If I hold the trigger until the tool shuts off, you can now see that I'm a batch 6 and I've gotten a green light or a blue light on the device. Thank you for your time today. You can find these products at S5. Give me a call. I'd love to help you out.
They all have lithium-ion batteries. The batteries have computer technology built into the battery so that it knows how much power it has and how much it needs to complete a fastener. So another thing about the tool is if you go to start a fastener and it doesn't have enough in it to finish that fastener, the tool won't even work. First time you use it, you'll think this thing is broken, but then you soon realize that the battery's dead. Along with that battery technology, I have found in the field that all you need is 2 batteries, one on a charger and one on the tool. I've never seen anybody discharge a battery faster than they can charge a battery. They, in addition to that, will last in general 3 times what your typical Makitas and DeWalt's, your off-the-shelf batteries will last. The tool is brushless, so there's you don't have to worry about replacement on the motor nearly as often. It uses less energy, depletes the battery less. No torque reaction on your arm. The ergonomics, and I'll pass these tools around real quickly. The ergonomics on the tool are better than any tool I've found. Less stress on your wrist. This is the larger tool, which is more commonly used for S5 clamps. This would be the smaller tool, which would be more commonly used for tightening PV kits and the top-down bolt on the clamp. The wireless option I spoke about in the video is optional. The tools cost about $300 more for that option. Most people don't need it, so there is the availability to get it without it. I think that's the gist of that tool. We're going to use it up here in the demo. Another tool that we've talked about and I wanted to show everyone, this is the torque wrench that we recommend. It's a dial indicating torque wrench. As you tighten a fastener, you can see what's happening on the dial. So you can see if you achieve torque, and then it'll instantly back off on a seam that is being compressed. There's one more tool that makes life much easier installing S5 products, especially on seam heights of 1.5 inches down to 1 inch or even lower. This is an angle driver that I searched high and low for when I was a contractor. You go to the Home Depots and the supply houses, you can't find anything but the snakes or those little DeWalt ones that break. This angle driver locks at 30 degrees, has a quick release tip on it, and will last thousands of S5 clamps as opposed to hundreds. The price on that is over $100. It's an Apex part, but you really do get the quality in it. Other tools when installing S5 products, we wanted it to be, S5 is always intended to be installed with products that are, with tools that are common to the trade. It's good to have a pair of snips, vice grip, tape measure, string line, marker, some kind of saw to cut the cross members at an end assembly. You saw one in the Panasonic video just right there at the end. That is a steel cutting saw, it's cordless. Sawzall, and what am I missing? I think that's a screw gun or an impact. The Panasonic is definitely not a requirement, but it does make life easier. It'll help you install products faster because you're not feathering it and trying to figure out how tight it should be. You're just holding the trigger all the way through. It does result in tightening down a clamp much faster. One other thing I really didn't mention in that video is these tools are all set up with a remote. You don't adjust the tool on a keypad or anything like that. It's done with a remote. This prevents you from accidentally changing the settings while you're in the field. It also prevents a laborer from changing the settings inadvertently or advertently. The way it works is you reset the power on it, you hold the light, squeeze the trigger, and it puts it into programming mode. You probably can't all see this, but right now it's in F, which is full mode, which means it won't shut off. I'm going to turn it way down to, I'm going to guess we're going to need it to be somewhere around 12, but we'll start at 11. So I've set the tool, can't change now. We're going to grab a clamp and our torque wrench. Now, there's already been clamps installed here, so it's already kind of detented. I may have it on too high a setting because of that. If you were to start fresh, and I don't really want to tear up their roof with a bunch of dimples. All right, you're gonna, so if I were to truly set this up right, I would come in, held it till it shut off, then go to my rear screw till it shuts off. Now at this point, I'll grab my torque wrench. I'm going to make sure it's set on 0, and I'm going to check my torque. Now in using a torque wrench, it's also important that you try to keep your arm in the same position when checking torque so that you're getting accuracy. Now that was only at 50. That was the first screw I tightened. The second screw is at about 75. So my settings aren't high enough. So I will turn it up 1 or even 2 and then do it again. Now, in order to properly do this, I've already tightened these fasteners. So if I hit them again, it's going to fool the gun. The proper way to do it is to take the clamp back off and start up here and retighten both. And what I found is this first screw was at 50, the second one is at 75. So the tightening pattern, once you get this tool properly set, will be to tighten the first one, the second one, then back to the first one. And they're going to be within range. I recommend that you start at 2 ends of the roof. And you measure up to your first clamp, or set your first clamp, set your second clamp down at the other end. You can run a string line between them. Some guys will use a chalk line. If you use a chalk line, be sure and wipe the chalk off after you're done because it will stay in the panels if you don't. And another option is a laser. Not too many people really use a laser. It's not that precision, but it can be handy. So I set the clamps, run a string line. I don't have a string line here today, so I'm going to use a piece of our ColorGard cross member as my straight edge. What this does is, the reason you measure up from one end and then the other instead of each panel is a metal roof is always going to be doing this. And that gives you a nice straight edge. What I'm installing is our ColorGard product, and we're going to use a VersaClip. The clamp I'm using is what we call the S5S, and this is for a snap seam profile. Earlier in my presentation, I showed you the AB seam, and it said the S5U clamp. We have yet to do further testing with AB's panels, we want to get this clamp tested. Right now we're using U values for this clamp, which is fairly safe, but we would like to go ahead and test this on that profile. Reason being is it has a straight edge here. So when you tighten it down on this panel, it sits straighter. The S5U has 2 lips on it, which when you tighten it down can cause it to cock just a little bit. It's not a serious issue, it's just an installer ease of use. So again, when tightening down the clamp, I'm going to start with the downhill screw. And the reason for that is if I were to start with this screw, it's going to rotate the clamp upward. Or if I start with this screw, it's rotating it all down into the seam, so it stays nice and tight. One thing I did forget to mention is when you're doing a job, it's best to handle all the set screws, thread them into the clamps when you're on the ground. It's easier, you're not on the roof monkeying around with it, dropping set screws to the bottom. Get them preset, put your bolts in a pouch, and that is the most efficient way to get it done. Now, I showed you the angle driver a minute ago. This panel is not that bad, but oftentimes, if it's any lower or a bigger tool, this thing gets jammed and you can't get it out. So then you find yourself pulling the clamp sideways and getting it out. With that angle driver, it totally prevents that. That being said, if you're going to use an angle driver and you're setting up your torque on this tool or any other tool, you want to use it like you're going to be doing it, because this does drastically affect your torque. I would have to turn this tool up probably 3 or 4 numbers for using this tool. So I've now installed 5 clamps fairly quickly. At this point, it's time to install the cross member. There are 2 options: punched ColorGard, which is punched on 4-inch centers, and unpunched ColorGard. The unpunched utilizes a VersaClip. The VersaClip slides into the notch and gives you a hole wherever you need it. This is handy for more things than one. Even if you have a panel that's laid out true on 4-inch intervals, a lot of times they'll get out of module, and so you'll find yourself that after 20 feet that you need to cut it to get your holes to line back up. This, you never have that problem. In addition to that, the VersaClip will allow you, with punched ColorGard, when you put it in place, you have no room to pivot. Or if you were wanting to go down a valley, this will allow it to pivot on the clamp. So you can install it askew, where with the punched ColorGard you cannot. So the next step in installing this system, this is 19.5, is that? It is 16, okay. This one's 16. I'm gonna opt not to use the punched. I'm gonna go ahead and use the VersaClip. It's a little, in doing this system, you really wanna preload everything, so I'm gonna show that. I've installed my first VersaClip for that pan down there. Now, I'm going to install the snow clip. The snow clip goes down to the flat of the panel and keeps snow from, it breaks up the snow and keeps ice from coming down after it's all been melted down below the bottom plane of this bar. This is what we call a sliding snow clip. It must be installed as you're going. We have another snow clip that is called a snap clip, which you can install after the fact as a retrofit. It has a slot through here, and you would run a screw into the back channel of this. So if you don't do snow clips, realize you need them, it's okay. This is an example of our snow clip 3 with the slot, and it will just fit right on. This one has to slide on. So on your first piece that you got to install, you want to check your snow clip to make sure you're using the proper lock. So you're going to set the bar down into place, and you're going to check how well that snow clip seats on the panel. You want it a little bit toe down with just a little heel up. And right now it's sitting pretty flat, so I think I'll go to the shorter lock. And then I'll start feeding on another Versa clip. Snow clip.
The question was that snow clips in some cases on our website are shown as optional. Our position is that if the panel seam is 2 inches or greater, you really should use snow clips. Keep in mind the purpose of the snow clip is to keep snow and or ice from passing underneath the ColorGard cross member. So it's rather inconsequential if you're using a 1 inch high seam and an inch of snow passes under the bar. It doesn't present a real dangerous hazard. So on those lower seam heights, we generally say it's optional. It's user discretion.
Only as a follow-up, we primarily have
Oh yeah, thank you, Sam. Sorry, I didn't address that part. It does also, on any calculation, even when the seam is 2 inches or greater, it will say, do you want snow clips on every row of assembly, or do you just want them on the bottom row? My preference as a rule is avoid the expenditure of using them all over the roof. That clip is only restraining 2 inches or so of snow. You don't need them on every single row. So it's quite okay just to use them on the last row, on the bottom row. Some users, some specifiers want them, more is better. So they want them on every row.
Okay, so I've preloaded my parts, and what I have found works the best is you just get them on there, you lay it up on the roof like I've got it laying here. What this does is allow you to get your spacing on all of your parts. Something guys always do is these parts fit together pretty tightly, and they're both aluminum. So if you go to push on it right here, it's not going to slide. You want to find the middle of the part, and it will slide easily. You'd be amazed. Guys will get up there and beat on them with a hammer and tear them up, but you just got to find the right spot to push them, and they slide very easily. Another thing guys will fight with is when they're installing this, they got these snow clips and they're coming from the bottom and they're trying to get this up here and they're fighting with it. If you just lay it on there like that and slide down the roof, you can get it right into place. Now I would go through and loosely tighten my bolts, or just get them started. Color strip is what we'll use next. Color strip is made of the same material as the roof. It's sheared into a 2-inch strip, which fits right into the channel on this ColorGard. You're going to slide it in. If you had multiple assemblies, we've only got room to do 1 row here, but you want to lap the color strip about 1 inch, inch and a half, so that it will move thermally. That prevents it from moving so much you see a big gray area in the middle of your assembly. Something I've learned in installing to make that easier to lap is when you first get it started in here, if you just ever so slightly bend it like that and then push it through, it will lap easier on the next one. But if you do it too much, it makes it too hard to slide. Not that you have to, but on the end of an assembly, I just bend it over like that. Helps keep it in place. The next thing you're gonna do is set up a pair of vice grips pretty tight, and you'll come in 1 per color strip. You grab the lip of the bar of the ColorGard, you squeeze and turn down. And what that does is it gives you a nice little divot in there to keep the color strip from moving. That prevents it, especially where you've got it lapped, it prevents it from moving too much because it could work itself loose and keep going. The other thing you don't want to do is stop your joint with your ColorGard joint. Color strip usually comes in 10-foot sections because it comes out of a flat sheet that's 10 feet. And I leave it in 10 feet instead of 8. So you run it through, you'll have a little bit hanging off here. You would come in then with your splice piece, and then you would take your next piece of ColorGard, preload the color strip through it, lock it into your splice, and continue on. ColorGard, we want it cut 4 inches from the end of a clamp. So you would come back with your reciprocating saw at the end of your assembly. Now, you wouldn't have started it this way. This would be the end of the assembly at the other end of the roof. And you make sure it's within 4 inches of the edge of the clamp. The reason for that is you leave this out here and it's weak. So it can precipitate a failure all the way down because it gives that weak spot to start pulling the whole system. Another thing that guys like to do is they want to put a snow clip right here. That doesn't work either on a cantilevered end for the same reason.
Unless it's a snap.
There are cases which I have seen where, and it doesn't happen often, but you're at the edge of the roof and they happen to have a walk door right there underneath that one. And the only time it's a problem is when you get snow that doesn't build up high enough to get caught or after it's melted down, but then you will get some snow coming down. So what they did is they made a piece that could go here where they could actually attach the bar into their ridge, into their rake. So that is a ColorGard assembly.